Okay, I'm back. Like herpes. This is basic grammar lesson number 3. If you haven't watched 1 and 2, I highly recommend you watch 1, especially, and 2. Okay, so we're going to continue. As you can see, the bullet points. Today, we're going to cover vivir, which is the paradigm, which means to live, the paradigm verb for the IR verbs. It is a regular verb, and a lot of Spanish IR verbs are regular. Then we're going to cover the new sentence pattern. We're going to cover the subject intransitive verb, which means it cannot take a direct object, and then followed by a prepositional phrase. We're going to get some handy vocabulary, as we always do. I'm not going to overwhelm you with vocabulary. Like, this is a basic grammar series. My pet peeve when I buy language books or when I buy textbooks for a language, is they overdo the grammar. Like chapter 1 will have a vocabulary list of like 25 to 40 words. I'm like, never going to remember this. Like, I'm never going to remember 40 words. I mean, I could, but it'd take a long time, and like I could be doing exercises, but I'm not, because I got to look up every single word in this sentence almost and then try to figure it out, and that's boring, that's tedious, and that is not motivating. So I'm keeping the vocabulary to a minimum. I'm adding a little bit to add a little variety and also to expand the things we can say. But the purpose of the basic grammar series is to give you grammar. So I am kind of like, I'm minimizing the vocabulary I'm giving you. In my imminent fluency series, the focus is on growing your vocabulary. So I'm minimizing the grammar, right? Like, that makes sense, right? Okay. Then we're gonna cover indefinite articles. The indefinite articles in English are a and an. We're not going to cover some. You could think of that as the plural indefinite, but we're not doing that. Just doing a and an. And then we're going to do translation practice, as that's what this grammar exercise is for. So make sure that you can, like, almost like second nature, start doing translations or start using the grammar. Okay, and so in the grammar today, the focus is on the vivir verb, the IR verb, in all of its forms, as far as present tense, active, for all of the subject pronouns. And here we go. So sentence pattern 1, as you can see on the top bar there, subject in parentheses, because most of the time it's not going to be there. It's not necessary, but for our purposes, we are going to state it because we want to make sure we make the connection between the subject and the verb in its conjugated form. An intransitive verb, vivir is an intransitive verb here, right? It doesn't take a direct object. You're going to need some kind of prepositional phrase, for example, to complete this thought. Okay, and the prepositional phrase is just a preposition plus some noun that belongs to that preposition. It's connected to that preposition. You can always grow a prepositional phrase, but at its bare minimum, it's a preposition and a noun, or a preposition and a pronoun. But for us, I think we're just going to use a noun. Okay, so here we go. Yo vivo. Yo vivo. In Spanish, a lot of native speakers, mind you, not just myself, well, let me take that back. And if you read a lot of Spanish textbooks and you talk to a lot of Spanish, even native speakers, they will tell you that the B in Spanish is different from the V. The B is different from the V in sound. Like, they say there's no difference, they say. But other people, a lot of people, not just including myself, think there is a difference. And I am purposefully, like making a different sound. I know I'm making a different sound. And my mouth mechanics are different for when I say B and when I say V in Spanish. In English, it's more pronounced. But okay, so yo vivo, vivo, not bibo, not yo bibo, but yo vivo. You hear the difference, by the way? Yo vivo with a B and yo vivo, vivo. I'm alternating. I'm not saying the same thing. One with the B and then the other one with the V. B, yo vivo. V, yo vivo. Vivo. If you don't hear a difference, fine. Just say vivo or vivo. Whichever one you're hearing sounds the same to you. But for many of us, we hear a difference. Okay, so yo vivo en los Estados Unidos. I'm going to give you full credit that you understand what Los Estados Unidos means. I live in the United States. Tú vives en España. Tú vives en España. You live in Spain. By the way, I'm not taking a lot of time on this conjugation because you should already be very good at it if you've gone through lesson 1 and lesson 2. So if you're just starting with this lesson, yeah, I'm not like this isn't for you. You really have already need to be able to conjugate the hablar and the comer verb fairly quickly. Ella vive en México. Ella vive en México. The me in Mexico is stressed, and the XI is a jico. México, México. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, nosotros vivimos, and notice the I. This is the only difference in the ending patterns in the subject ending for the conjugation between comer verbs and vivir, between ER verbs and IR. It's the ending in the nosotros. En nosotros, in nosotros for comer, it's comemos with an hemos. But for vivir, it's vivimos with an imos. And in hablar, it's hablamos with an amos. And this is the only time they're all three different here. Otherwise, the ER and the IR are identical. Okay, so nosotros vivimos en California. We live in California. Ustedes viven en Peru. Accent over the U because it's Peru. It's not Peru, it's Peru. Ustedes viven en Peru. You live, you plural, or you guys or yo, live in Peru. I don't say yo, like Californians don't say yo. There's nothing wrong with it. We just don't, that's very strange to us. Okay. Ellas or ellos, doesn't matter, viven en Argentina. It's Argentina. Remember, the E immediately after the G makes it soft, which makes it identical to the J, the J. Argentina, Argentina. That's why it's Argentina, because the E makes the G soft. And usted vive en Inglaterra. Terra is Latin for land or earth. We have terrain. We have extraterrestrial, reference to land or earth, right? Extra is beyond. Terrestrial is beyond the earth. Inglaterra, England, right? Okay, that shouldn't be too hard. Hopefully you guys got it. I'm not defining these, but I am telling you what the answer is, but like I think it's obvious. Okay, that's the new sentence pattern consisting of a prepositional phrase here. This is the prepositional phrase. And means in here. It could mean on, it could mean at, but for our purposes today, it'll just probably, I think it's always going to be in. And it'll make sense to you. Okay, so now let's go to some handy vocab. En, we just covered, means in, on, or at. I gave you no mnemonic. I gave you no etymology because en and in sound the same, or spelled similarly, en, in. Like, what else could I do to make these connect to each other? So if you don't remember en means in, and you're going to repeat it a lot, so it's going to stick. Okay. Aquí, here. Aquí, here. The Latin, it comes from the Latin hic, hike, hook, huyus, huyus, huyus. I don't remember the rest, but if you watch Monty Python, you would know that. Or if you take in Latin class, you would find it even hilarious because you'd probably done that exact drill. Okay, so hic and here are similar, but aquí and here are not. So hopefully, but I don't know how you would remember. Yeah, so the Latin, it comes from hic, meaning here. And we have the English cognate hither. Come hither, right? Kind of old-fashioned. We don't, nobody speaks that way, but like, well, it's still like, it's not like obsolete. Like it's still around, but like it's very unusual. Like you would, maybe you hear it in a play or something like that. Come hither. Okay, come hither. So hither, here, aquí, hic, here. Or just remember, ven aquí, come here. Ven aquí, ven aquí, ven aquí, come here. Okay. Allí, there. Here, there. Allí. Remember, the double L in Spanish is a Y sound. a hard Y, like yuck, yuck. Allí, allí. Aquí, allí. Aquí, allí. Okay. País. This is not a diphthong. A diphthong are two syllables or more that make one syllabic sound, or one sound. This is two. This is pa and is. País. País. Okay. País comes from the Latin pagus. Pagus means a country or a rural area, like the countryside, right? That's what pagus meant. And that's what we got. And so the word for pagan in ancient times was paganus, related to pagus, meaning someone from the countryside, right? Someone from the countryside, someone that lived out in the country. And then later it became to mean what it means now, right? But so país came to mean country, right? From pagus, okay, that's the connection. That's the best I can do for you. Or just remember país. Ciudad, ciudad, I don't want to make this capital. Ciudad, it comes from the Latin civitas, civitas, which was city, right? And remember, the Rome had civis, citizens of civitas, city states, right? You're a citizen. Then we have civitatis, right? Kiwis. So kiwis. So I think ciudad and kiwis, or ciudad and civitas, the V's are W, pronounced W's. Civitas is city. Civitas is a city. That's very close. So hopefully ciudad, civitas, city, or ciudad, city, you remember, you make the connection. Grande. If you've been to Starbucks, you know grande, right? But we have many cognates, right? Grand, grandiose, great. They all come from grande, or they all come from, yeah, these are the same, they come from the same roots, basically. So, and by the way, adjectives ending in E in Spanish, like interesante, which obviously means interesting, we don't worry about the gender. They apply to both masculine and feminine nouns. So, un carro, masculine noun, car, grande. Una casa, feminine noun, grande, right? It's only the adjectives that end with an O that will become, that you will have to switch to an A ending to make feminine. But the E ones here, you don't. So great, great. And I'll make the point again I made before. Generally, adjectives follow the nouns they modify. So we say big city in English, but in Spanish we would say city big. But you can flip the order. You can say big city. But it's more common to do the other way. It's more common to put the noun first and then the adjective later. Okay, well, we'll see examples. Pequeño. Pequeño means small, sometimes tiny. And the cognate we have in English is petite. It's not terribly close, but I think it's kind of close. Pequeño, pequeño, petite. And we have this expression, a picometer, which means a small unit of measure. When you want to measure very, very small distances, you use a picometer. Okay, maybe this is foreign to you. But anyway, it's closer. It's kind of close to pequeño. Now, pequeño is singular masculine. Singular masculine. If you want to make it plural, you would have to say pequeños. Masculine, but plural. Pequeña is singular feminine. And if you want to make it plural, it would be pequeñas. Pequeñas. By the way, this QUE, we don't read it like English QUE. Like in English, we would say question. Question with a little W thrown in there. In Spanish, it's almost like you read it as if it were a K-E. Pequeño, not pequeño. Don't say pequeño. Like, it's horrible. Pequeño. Pequeño. Just use when you see the QU, think of it as a K. Pequeño. And why did they write K? Yeah, I know. Pequeña. Pequeño. Pequeña. Okay, pronunciation tip. Seguro. Singular, masculine, plural. Seguros. I hope you thought, even though you're too lazy to say it. Segura. Feminine, singular, plural. Did I guilt you into saying seguras? Yes. Okay. Cognates, secure. Very close. Like that's going to help. Security, even insurance, right? Which is kind of like a safeguard or like, okay. So that's it. Those are the cognates. I think that's helpful enough. There's no reason to go into etymology or any other kind of phrases. Seguro, segura. Okay, I'm not expecting you to memorize this list, but we're going to use these words over and over again. And hopefully by the time you do that, some of those like etymology, the cognates, or whatever interesting stories I can come up with will help you. Not that I can think of interesting stories. I am very dull. Okay. Peligroso, opposite of seguro. Peligroso. Peligroso, singular, masculine. Plural, peligrosos. Peligrosa, feminine, singular, plural, peligrosas, dangerous. And we have the word perilous, which is dangerous, right? So that's a great cognate. That's a good mnemonic device. Peligroso, perilous. Looks like perilous. So the definition is the same. So excellent. Beautiful, beautiful. I am beautiful. Okay, the last one. I threw in the article here, which is fine because we're going to learn articles today. Un poco. Because normally we say a little. In English, we have little and a little, and they're different uses, right? When you're learning in English, like people like get a little bothered by the fact that we have little and a little, and we use them differently. Okay, same with a few and a few. But anyway, so we say un poco, which we almost always say a little. That's what we're saying. We're saying a little. And it comes from the Latin paucus, which means few, right? And we have the word paucity, which means a little bit, or a lack of, or a dearth, right? It means like there's not much, right? A paucity. Okay, so yeah, so that's the vocabulary. I was trying to think of the word for poor in Latin, but it escapes me. But it comes from this word paucus. Maybe it's that. Okay, anyway, so that's what we have. Has a vocabulary. Hopefully you remember. Now, very easy grammar, very easy grammar. English, we just have a and an. And the a or an doesn't matter as far as gender, right? We don't, because English doesn't have gender. We don't really care about the noun, the gender of the nouns. We don't worry about that. And so the articles reflect that. We just have a or an. And in English, it's about the following sound. It used to be about the following letter. Like it was an, and then history. We used to say an history, but now we say a history because of the a and the h. We used to, but anyway, that's English. That's another lesson. In Spanish, the masculine singular version of a or an, and it's just un. It doesn't matter what the next sound is. It doesn't matter what if the next word, if the word after that begins with a vowel or a consonant. As long as it's masculine, it's un, which means basically a or an, depending on your translation. Un. That's it. Un. Basically like uno. You can think of it as uno, but it's un, right? It's a. And the feminine, we just add the a like we typically do for feminines. So una. Una casa, a house. Un perro, a dog, right? Okay, that's it. Easy, easy peasy. There's nothing to explain, right? Indefinite article, a or an. Okay, un or una. We're not going to do the plurals, right? We'll do the plurals another time. But we're trying to do, I'm giving you the grammar little by little because I think the most important part is the conjugation. And so and that's why I'm also kind of keeping the vocabulary, as I said, to a minimum. 2 grammar tips today. Grammar tip number 1. Aquí, here, allí, there are most commonly placed. Thank you, Google, for pointing out my errors. Placed after the verb. Commonly, not only, not exclusively, but commonly, it's after the verb, especially when there is a subject noun or pronoun in that clause. So when you have Maria, or when you have él or ella or nosotros in that clause, in that, let's say, sentence, the most common place to put aquí or allí is after the verb. When there is no nosotros, like if you just don't say the nosotros because you don't need to say it, right? You can just say vivimos. When there's no subject or pronoun, aquí and allí can go before the verb, and we'll see examples. Like so, I'll give you an example now. So let's say I throw in the noun. I say nosotros. So I say nosotros. So this is the first example. This is an example of the first kind here when there is actually a subject. Nosotros vivimos, we live aquí, here. We live here. Nosotros vivimos aquí. Because the subject is there, it's common to place the aquí after the verb vivimos. If I don't say nosotros, which I don't need to say that when I say we live here, I can just say aquí vivimos. I throw the aquí before the verb. I can do that. I can also do it after. I can say vivimos aquí, or I can say aquí vivimos. Both, right? Both. You can also say nosotros aquí vivimos, but it's a little less common. It's not wrong. It's just less common. And so, and if we, the fewer the grammar rules, the better. As long as we can speak proper Spanish, like we'll worry about getting more like sophisticated later. So if there's a subject and you're going to use the word aquí or allí, throw it after the verb. It's perfectly good. If there's no subject, you could just also throw it after the verb, actually, but I kind of maybe just said that. But you can also throw it before the verb, and it's very common before the verb. That's why I kind of put that in, right? It's very common to do it before the verb if there's no subject, pronoun, right? Okay. Tip number 2. Adjectives typically follow the nouns they modify. I already talked about this, right? Casa grande, right? Casa grande, país seguro, país seguro, safe, city safe. We say city safe, not safe city. We reverse the order. In English, it's adjective noun. In Spanish, it's noun adjective. But we also can, in Spanish, switch the order to make it adjective noun. And usually there's no meaning change. Sometimes there is, but we're not going to worry about that. So if you do the reverse, you're not speaking poor Spanish. Okay, so you're going to be okay. But and the more you hear Spanish, you'll start to like, oh, okay, it's coming after the noun, after the noun, after the noun. So you'll start to mimic, right? Okay, that's it. That's it. Easy tips. Easy tips. Here we go. Translation time. Yo vivo con mi mamá. By the way, I'm throwing in the Spanish from lessons 1 and 2. Like I said, this is a cumulative. These lessons are stacking on top of each other. They're not like standalone lessons, right? I expect for you to learn the grammar and the vocabulary from lesson 1. I'm going to use some of that vocabulary in lesson 2. I'm going to use lesson 1 and 2 vocabulary for lesson 3, and so on. So, yo vivo con mi mamá. If you don't understand this, don't be upset with me. Okay. Yo vivo. This is lesson 3. If you don't know, yo means I, like, I go. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out. Get out. Yo vivo con mi mamá. Remember con? Con? Con. Do you remember con? Come on. Con. With. Mi mamá. Even if you took no Spanish, you should probably know mi mamá. My mother. I live with my mother. Loser. Okay. Tú no vives aquí. Tú no vives. Remember, Spanish, making a Spanish verb a negative verb is really easy. We just throw the no in front of it somewhere, not necessarily right before it, somewhere before it. Tú no vives aquí. You do not live aquí. Aquí. Hic. Here. Tú no vives aquí. You don't live here. Aquí vivimos. There's the example from tip 2. I can throw the aquí before the vivimos because there's no subject and it just sounds very natural this way to us. But you can also say vivimos aquí. So aquí vivimos means we live here. We wouldn't translate it as here we live. That's awkward English. We don't translate into awkward English. We translate into colloquial, normal English. So we would translate this as we live here, even though literally we're saying here we live. Okay. And here we live is not wrong. It's just like way like weird, ancient. Ellas viven en Barcelona. Or as the people from Spain would say, ellas viven en Barcelona. Barcelona. I'm not mocking it. Well, maybe I am. If you are learning Spanish because you want to go travel to Spain, or you want to speak the Spanish from Spain, or maybe I think Argentina, you need to watch videos how they speak, because some of the grammar is different. Like they don't say ustedes for you guys, they say vosotros, and then the verb is not going to be like ustedes hablan, it's going to be vosotros habláis, right? and they do have that little th for some of the, I can't do, I don't know exactly where it goes, but ellas viven en Barcelona would be like the pronunciation. Okay, but we're not doing that. Ellas viven en Barcelona. Remember, the CE makes the C soft, just like the GE makes the G soft, or the E makes the G soft, and the E makes the C soft, so it's an S sound. Barcelona, Barcelona. Okay. They, which is a group of females, two or more, live in Barcelona. Nosotros vivimos en California con nuestros padres. Nosotros vivimos en California con nuestros padres. Nosotros vivimos. That should not be. Should not be difficult. We live in California. In California. Con. We've seen con already. With nuestros. Do you remember nuestros? Nuestros padres. I've never given you padres before. I gave you padre, which means father. But here's a little like language, like, I don't know, tidbit. In Spanish, parents can be parents. The mean parents is can be said, expressed with the word for father in the plural. So padre is father. You could say you have two fathers, and you would say dos padres. A little progressive, but okay. But also the word padres means parents. And also, by the way, it's the same thing happens with children. The word for son is hijo. And if you have more than one hijo, you have hijos. But if you ask somebody, do you have hijos? You're asking if they have kids in general, male or female. So yeah, up with the patriarchy. Okay, here we go. We live in California with our parents. Losers. Okay, well, maybe they're young. Okay. Still losers because they're young. Okay, Pablo no vive ahí. Pablo no vive ahí. Pablo no vive ahí. Pablo no vive ahí. Pablo, Petey Pablo, doesn't live there. Because you have the Pablo there, it would be strange to say Pablo ahí no vive. Not wrong, just a little unusual. But if Pablo wasn't there, and we knew we were talking about Pablo, you could just say ahí no vive. You can throw the e before the verb if there's no Pablo or no él, right? Not that you couldn't. So Pablo no vive ahí. Pablo doesn't live there. Okay. Question. Questions are always a little bit tricky, a little bit confusing in new languages. Even like I know I suffer from this. Ustedes viven en Los Angeles? And there's different ways to like write that question, but a normal way is just to take the sentence and use intonation, right? Like if you say like I can say you are Chinese, but I can also say you're Chinese, right? You're Chinese. I'm telling you, you're Chinese, or you're Chinese. And then Spanish, that's a common way to ask the question, is just to put an intonation onto it, a rising intonation. Ustedes viven en Los Angeles? Okay. What am I saying? Ustedes. Ustedes is, remember, this is the you won't see this in the Spanish. You won't see this in Argentinian Spanish. Ustedes is you guys, or you. Ustedes viven. You guys live. Where? In Los Angeles. Again, the E after the G makes it a Ch. Los Angeles. And there's an accent over the A because it's Angeles. Right? It's not, right? Okay. You guys live in Los Angeles? Yes. Sí. María vive ahí con Carlos. Hubba, hubba. María vive ahí con Carlos. Okay. I feel like I want to space this, especially when you're reading a new language. Like, Any clarity, even when it's kind of like this kind of clarity helps. I should have done this earlier for you guys, but just thought of it. Okay. Maria, who's a banger. Fine, fine, Maria. Vive ahí. Maria lives ahí, there, con Carlos. With Carlos. Bow, chicka, bow, bow. Sorry, I'm stupid, immature, and I know unfunny, but I'm funny to myself, and really that's all that matters. Okay, Javier no vive con su madre, vive con su amigo. Javier no vive con su madre, vive con su amigo. Huh? You guys get this? 2 sentences. What's up? What's going on here? Our Spanish is expanding. It's expanding. That's what she said. I set that up. That was obvious, right? Okay. Javier no vive con su madre. Javier no vive con su madre. Javier, I have to say it the English word. Javier doesn't live with his mother because he's a grown man. He's a grown man. He's an adult. Vive con su amigo. Loser. He actually lives with his friend, roommate. Okay. We can forgive Javier. He may be in his 20s. Maybe he went to college and just graduated. Maybe he went to an Ivy League school and learned nothing. So he's an idiot. And he can't afford to pay his rent. So he has to share the rent. What am I going on about? What am I going on about? Javier no vive con su madre. Javier doesn't live with his mother. Vive con su amigo. Here, classic, we already talked about Javier. So when you say vive, I already know you're talking about Javier still. So we wouldn't say Javier again. We wouldn't even say él. We just say vive, knowing it's Javier. Vive con su amigo. He lives with his friend, right? Not like me. I live with Maria. He lives with his guy friend. Loser. Okay, 10. Nosotros vivimos aquí. Nosotros vivimos aquí. We live here. We live here. Okay, that's fast, right? 11. Él vive en una ciudad peligrosa. Él vive en una ciudad peligrosa. Ciudad, 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 ciudad peligrosa. Él vive en una ciudad peligrosa. He lives in a dangerous city. He lives in a dangerous city. Yo vivo en un país muy seguro. Yo vivo en un país muy seguro. Okay. I live in a very safe country. I live in a very safe country. Okay. Like Japan, very safe country. You know what's a very safe country? Like I recently found out, I don't know if I mentioned this, El Salvador, right? I think like 5 years ago, it had a reputation of being like one of the most dangerous countries in the Western Hemisphere, like worse than some African like countries that are in like constant like tribal warfare. But now I think it's like the not one of, I think the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. Safer than Canada. Crazy, right? El Salvador. Like travel to El Salvador, people. Go, great place to be, safe place, your money goes far. Okay. Where are we? 11, sorry. Él vive en una ciudad peligrosa. He lives in a dangerous city. Yo vivo en un país muy seguro. I live in a very safe country. 13. Okay, this time I'm gonna give you a little bit more time before I get into it, but I feel like you guys know it, but since it's a long sentence, I'll say less. Say less. Pablo y Javier viven con María en una ciudad muy segura, pero yo vivo solo en una ciudad un poco peligrosa. Solo. I threw in solo, hoping you guys would know. Remember, solamente meant just or only, and solamente comes from the word solo. Solo, we take the O and change it to an A, and then we add mente, solamente. So solo means alone. Okay, that's all I'm giving you because I didn't give it to you and I didn't want you to suffer a word. Like, I hate when people give me vocabulary that's new. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Oh, you throw a wrench. Oh, you throw a monkey wrench into the machine here. Pablo y Javier. Pablo y Javier. I don't know if we talked about E. Did we talk about E? I think that was lesson 1, E, right? Pablo and Javier, and Javier. Pablo, sometimes it's hard for me to make the Americanized version. Pablo and Javier viven. They live, right? So not they, the word doesn't exist, but it's the same conjugation. Pablo and Javier live con María, with Maria, en una ciudad muy segura. Right, you kind of have to do the. You kind of it's weird in English when you like if you're a native English speaker. It's weird because for us we think when we think with the language that we have. So we think in a very safe city, in that order, in a very safe city. That's the way we think about it. That's the way we process it. So when we read Spanish, en una ciudad muy segura, it kind of messes with us because we're reading in a city very safe. And yeah, until we don't, that's not instant for us. It doesn't make sense for us because we have to rearrange the words for it to make sense to us. Okay, but that's just a product of learning a new language in terms of your own grammar. As you do it more, you won't go through that transition phase. You'll just think of Spanish, in the grammar that Spanish people use to think. Spanish people don't think in a safe city. They think en una ciudad muy segura. And what they understand is what you understand, but they don't think literally the same thing. It's kind of like, okay. Pero, you remember pero? Pero yo vivo solo. I gave you solo, which is alone. Pero yo vivo solo en una ciudad un poco peligrosa. Why am I rocking? But I live alone because Pablo and Javier live together. And not only together with Maria. What happened to Maria? I thought she lived with me. A little hussy. Anyway, Pablo and Javier viven con María en una ciudad muy segura. Pero yo, but I, vivo solo, live alone, en una ciudad un poco peligrosa, in a city that's a little dangerous. A little dangerous city, right? Technically, we would throw in una ciudad. Okay, that's good enough grammar. Just understand un poco peligrosa means a little dangerous. Una ciudad un poco peligrosa. Okay, that's it. Finally, 14. Ella vive en una ciudad grande y segura, pero yo vivo en una ciudad pequeña y peligrosa. Notice that in 13, I said peligros. Sorry, I take that back. Ignore what I just said. Yeah. Where is the example? Oh, I didn't use peligroso anywhere, I don't think. So I was going to give you the example of that. When it modifies a masculine noun versus a feminine noun. Okay, so I know I'm talking while you're thinking, but ella vive, she lives en una ciudad grande y segura. Grande y segura is big and safe. And una ciudad is a city. So she lives in a big and safe city, or a big safe city, however you want to translate it. Pero, yo vivo, I live, en una ciudad that is what? Pequeña, tiny, or small, and peligrosa. Peligrosa. Dangerous. Because I'm modifying ciudad, which is feminine. So that's it. That's the translations. All right. I hope you guys are doing I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're translating fairly quickly. you have to do the repetition. You have to go through the repetition. You have to like, you gotta put in the work. Like it's not going to stick unless you just do a bunch of exercises, a bunch of exercises. It can be tedious and like monotonous and, but a little variety and yeah, okay, that's it. All right. This is lesson 3. Lesson 4 and lesson 5, I don't know how I'm going to divide it up. We're going to introduce the verb ser, which is the to be verb. Spanish has 2 to be verbs, which people hate. And then we have estar, which is another to be verb. So they're both be. Like if you say I am something, it depends on what that something is. You might have to say yo soy for the ser verb, or yo estoy for the estar verb, depending on what you're finishing, how you're finishing that sentence. It depends, right? So in lesson 4, I think we'll cover the ser verb, and which is probably the most irregular verb in Spanish, the ser verb, at least in the present active that we're doing. And then maybe in lesson 5, I will save lesson 5 for the estar verb. Yeah, and little by little, I'll give you like the direct object pronouns, the indirect object pronouns, past tense verbs, future tense verbs. There's 2 futures, just like English has I will fly there tomorrow, or I am going to fly there tomorrow. In Spanish, the one that like corresponds to the I am going to fly there tomorrow is easier to make. So I'll introduce you to that one. The other one, that I will fly, is very useful too, but it's just easier to teach the other one first. So I will. So you can say things in the present tense that you do regularly. You can say things that you did in the past, and then you can say things that you're going to do in the future. Even though it won't be the most sophisticated grammar, it won't be wrong. It'll just be sometimes a little like less than like native, but perfectly understandable, and like, yeah, you're not really butchering the language. Okay, so that's the plan. Um, that's it. I can ramble on forever because I love the sound of my voice. Okay, I'm out. I'm gonna click a few things. So I'll jabber away until I figure out how to end this. See ya. I said see ya, and I thought I was gonna, whatever.